Welcome to Off Panel, Sketch.com's comic-centric podcast. This week's episode, we welcome the artist of the Eisner and Harvey Award-winning series Chew at Image Comics, Rob Guillory. Thanks for joining the show, Rob.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me. And thanks for pronouncing my last name correctly.
I thought it was Guillory. I wasn't sure, so I went with... you never know. You never know. Does that happen a lot?
Congratulations. Oh, yeah, it happens all the time.
So this is going completely off topic to start, but do you know Cena Grace?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I totally thought Cena Grace was a girl when I and so I did my old Four Color News and Brews show, and on that show I talked about it. I was like, oh, she's such a great artist. She's this, she's that, and then Cena commented, and he's like, oh man, yeah, thank you for loving on my art, but I'm a guy. And I'm like, so I guess at least I got your gender right, and I got your name right, so 2 for 2.
Yeah, if you screwed up my gender, we would really be having problems. I mean, that's really, it's kind of an easy one, I think.
It could be a shortened Roberta. I don't know this.
Well, that's true. I guess you got me there.
Anyways, so it's been a big couple weeks for you. You just got back from Boston, but you also launched a new website for yourself, and I have to say, it's pretty awesome. But for you, what's new about this site compared to what you had on your previous site, and why did you need a new site as an artist?
Well, I mean, I've kind of I've never really had an actual site. I mean, I've kind of had a collection of kind of duct taped together pieces of crap, pretty much.
Your last one was Blogger, wasn't it?
Yeah. I had a Blogger that I kind of had. I've had that Blogger probably for about 10 years. And I kind of got started with that a couple of years into me, kind of pursuing comics as a real job. So it had a lot of stuff on there that I kind of probably shouldn't be seen anymore. A lot of really, really, really old work. So I had that for a while. For a while that was the actual I just redirected robguillory.com to that old Blogger. Mm-hmm. But in addition to that, about 4 years ago, I guess, I had a buddy of mine build a website, build kind of like an online store for the Chew work. I paid the guy nothing. I paid him in bugles, and he built a website, and it was decent enough. It's kind of served its purpose and definitely paid for itself. But at the same time, it was not a very good site. I never liked how it looked. The interface really wasn't user friendly, and we had tons of inventory issues. We had a thing. It only happened 2 or 3 times, but we didn't notice it until a year ago. It was one of those things where you could buy a page and it wouldn't automatically take it off of the site.
Oh man.
Yeah, exactly. So another person could come behind them and buy the exact same page, and it was just a huge headache. And we weren't able to just fix it in the code because it was just such a gigantic pain. Mm-hmm. So at some point, I just had enough. Me and my wife my wife does my original art sales. So it was it's already dangerous ground because it's my art agent is also my wife. So I have to we have certain divisions in the relationship just to keep things healthy and safe.
Right.
But it just really wasn't efficient. It would be one of those things where someone would buy from the site, and I would get an email saying, from PayPal saying, hey, someone bought a page. So then I would have to print out that form. I'd have to prompt her and forward it to her, respond to the person who bought the page. So already we've gotten 4 separate emails I have to send just to for one page.
Oh my God.
And then she has to go into Dreamweaver of all things to take the page off of the site. It was complete chaos. And it just wasn't something that I could actually work with. It wasn't something I wanted to work with. I really wanted to do daily sketches and things like that, but it was such a headache just to upload things and take things down, and it just wasn't worth it. Mm-hmm. So about a year ago, I guess 6 or 7 months ago, I just got fed up with it, and I realized that I actually have a really, really good friend, a guy named Mike Spears, who runs Firefly Digital in Lafayette, Louisiana, in my hometown, which is probably one of the better, if probably the best web builder in Lafayette. And I said, holy crap, why don't I just pay Mike to build me a real site? And he, of course, he like jumped at it, and they built this really nice WordPress site that's way better than anything I could have asked for.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's basically got everything you could ask for. It's got a blog that I update probably a couple times a week so far. I mean, it's got a really, really intuitive online store, which is the really neat thing, and this is one of those things I had never really asked for, is it has the ability to do downloadable content, which I didn't really expect. So I could, in the future, do downloadable webcomics or one-shots or whatever if I really wanted to.
No podcast, though. No podcast.
no, definitely no podcast. So yeah, it's got everything I can think of all in one place.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And so you had mentioned, doing daily sketches, and that's something I just realized that Scotty Young does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've seen that, but he sells like daily sketches on there, and I mean, it's like, as far as artists go, it like a question for many artists is often like, how do you continue bringing in income and things like that? But it seems like I have to imagine he makes a fairly good chunk of change just off of those daily sketches, and
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty cool. I'm not saying you're going to be doing that immediately or something, but like having an option like that in a store that's a little bit more simplified, I have to imagine would be very helpful in, improving the original art sales aspect of your business, or, business, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've, Q's been going on since 2009, and I really feel like I'm only now kind of, getting to a place where I could actually like kind of optimize, my income and optimize like people have been asking me to do daily sketches for the last 7 years. And like people have been asking me to like do certain things, for the last 7 years, and I haven't really had the time or the place to do them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, the site makes things really, really easy. I mean, just in the last, the site's only been live for a week, and just the reaction to it has been ridiculous. I mean, literally, like at this point, I'm uploading everything and managing everything. And my wife, I'm like kind of like giving her, little lessons on the side so she can take it over. But just in the last week, I mean, we've pretty much paid for the site,
wow.
Which is pretty crazy. It's done way beyond anything I could have imagined. And it's an interesting thing because, I guess I really didn't do a really good job of promoting what I had before, just the online store and my blog.
Mm-hmm.
Or just, I guess maybe I've gotten to a place where my Twitter following is that much more interested in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I actually had, it's interesting kind of watching, it's been this really weird experiment where, example, I kind of had this really funny interaction with a guy who, bought a bunch of pages yesterday in Germany. Mm-hmm. And I sell a lot of art internationally. But we were talking about stuff, and he just emailed me asking me about future covers and whatever. And he was saying, he's like, well, the site is awesome for me because I live in Germany, and typically, the translations take a while before they get to Germany. So by the time the shoe gets over there and they see, what the pages are, all the good pages are usually gone.
Oh, that's a bummer. Yeah.
Right. So it was a case now where he was like, this is awesome. Issue 50 is online. Issue 50 is not even in Germany yet, but the guy was able to buy pages from issue 50.
That is awesome.
So, yeah. So it's really, really it's been a really cool, interesting experiment that I couldn't have imagined it being as successful as it's been so far.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I don't know why, but like your guys' success in other countries keeps coming up in my other podcasts. Like the one I posted today with Joe Keating, we talked about your guys' success in France and how is it called Tony Chu Detective Cannibal there?
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah. Anyways, it is, but that is kind of one of the cool things about having a site that's much more effective and is much more attractive and everything is people have a tendency. Not saying that they wouldn't share it because it wasn't like, aesthetically pleasing or something like that. But having a site like that makes it much more shareable, which means that people in like Germany or in France or wherever else that you guys have foreign licensing deals. I think John was telling me about like Poland. I think you guys are in Poland now. Was it?
Yeah, I think so. We're in like 10 or 11 countries. I'm not exactly sure. Like, I don't remember all of them. I know we're about to be in like Czechoslovakia or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all over the place.
But I mean, like, so your new site, I have to imagine that's going to make it easier for people like that to reach your work and find things like that, and that's huge, especially given the fact that I talked to you for my piece about original art sellers, and not everyone does what you do, where you sell your own art, and it can be like your job as an artist is enough work as is, but you also have like marketing of your work, and you also have running the store and things like that. So I suppose like not having to use Dreamweaver to make any small changes or anything like that is probably time that you get back that is very welcome.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's still, I mean, like I said, we're still figuring it out. It's kind of silly to think about, but yeah, I mean, she's been going since 2009, and I really feel like we're only kind of hitting our stride in terms of managing it now, especially in the original art side, because we've been. I mean, me and my wife do this. We're very mom and pop. So this new site is a gigantic step towards like making us actually like professional. So like it's been really, really nice because it's just the ease of it is just unbelievable. And there's not a lot of management that has to take place. At this point, a lot of the management is just going to be, keeping things up to date with the blog and that kind of thing. And the good news is I have, 40 issues of Shoe that I haven't even put online yet.
What?
So I'm, well, yeah, I mean, like, I don't, like, pretty much everything from issue 1 through 10 has been sold for the most part. There's, like, I still own a lot of the art from issue 1 and 2. And there's a few pages, like, in the beginning I was really sentimental, so I used to keep pages. Nowadays it's like I'm pumping it out so fast. I'm like, just get it out. Just get it out of here.
Get it away from
me. I don't
me.
even want to I don't have any room for this stuff to keep it around. When I get to issue 60, I'll probably keep some stuff because that'll be the last issue. But now it's just, we're getting the hang of it. It's gotten a lot easier. I don't have to do a whole lot to it. So I'm just going to be going back on a weekly basis and basically like uploading like one issue from the past and, just putting it out there and seeing what happens with it. So it'll stay pretty fresh just doing that by itself.
Yeah. Well, and one thing, away from the store, one thing I really like is that you included a blog in there. And, I as you know, I'm always entertained and enlightened by the things you say online. It gives you an avenue to post things like you went to Boston Comic Con and you're posting commissions and things like that. But what are your plans with that? And what do you like? Why did you decide to include that aspect to the site?
Well, I mean, honestly, I was kind of, when I was kind of banging around like what I wanted the site to be, a lot of it was kind of in reaction to social media. For the last couple of years, I had the blog, Rob Guillory, .blogspot, but I hadn't updated it in like 2 to 3 years. Like I was so busy with Shoe and just working and everything, I just didn't have the energy to go to the blog and kind of keep it up. So Twitter was pretty much all I had. I got off of Facebook a few years ago when my in-laws got on Facebook, and I just didn't want to be a part of that anymore. So I got off. Twitter was all I had, and Twitter's been a lot of fun. But the thing is about Twitter is, it can get really kind of cumbersome to kind of break down more complex ideas into just 140 characters, and then you get into like kind of like the outrage community and just kind of all the stuff that's been going on Twitter for a while. I kind of got to a place where I just kind of didn't want to be as much of a part of that anymore.
Right.
It's really cool to kind of keep in touch with everyone, and especially the fans and other creators. But at the same time, Twitter can get it can be a pretty big distraction. I mean, because it's just so much, input coming in all at once. I mean, even when you're like just in your own mentions and that kind of thing, you have like an entire, you got the trends on the sides. You get to see like, oh, look, Lenny Kravitz like split his pants. it's like, why do I even need to like know about this? So at some point I just kind of got a little tired of it, and Twitter is a lot of fun. but at the end of the day, it's not the most productive thing ever. I mean,
Right.
it has its moments, it has its purposes, but at the same time, like I was just looking for something way more, just I guess productive, and something that kind of redeemed my time a little better.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I kind of banged around the idea of a blog, which I didn't know. I didn't know if it was too like old school, because I don't know. Like I know you keep a blog, obviously.
Yeah.
But
You're talking to the guy who writes 5,000 word articles. I am Mr. Old School.
right. But like I didn't know if that was still a thing that people went to and read. Like I didn't know. I'm out of the loop, so I wasn't sure if that would be acceptable or not. So at some point I just said, screw it. Like I'm just going to do this. And in the past, in my old blog, I had some really good times just kind of writing about my process, about just random thoughts about breaking in and just the industry as a whole. And, I seem like at some point I've kind of like acquired, I don't know, like some people seem interested in what I have to say, which I don't completely understand, but I'll take it. So at some point I just said, like, screw it. Like, I'm just going to have a blog. And whenever I feel like posting whether it's just like crappy iPhone pics of me at Boston Comic-Con, doing commissions, or if it's something more in depth, I actually have a couple of posts from my old blog, one of which is about just the development of my style.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from posting stuff from when I was like age 9 to now, and just kind of going back over that entire process. And I have another one just about kind of breaking into the industry and that general kind of stuff. And just telling industry stories as a whole is just kind of always entertaining. And Twitter's, not really not the best, forum for that kind of thing. So it was just really just wanting to kind of branch out and play around with more long form and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that in that social media piece I did a little while ago, there was, I had talked to Jim Zub, and he had talked about how of all the things that he has done that has really promoted his work, probably the thing that's generated the most like interest in his actual work has nothing to do with his work. He was doing those like how-to pieces or like how to break into comics. I don't know if you've seen those, but they're really, really great. But he said that it seems like people are going from that and then looking into his work and then buying his work. And I think that ties into something. It's not to make this like a personal branding thing, but I do think it's valuable to have a larger look at who you are and what you think. And then on top of that, the fact that on the same site you have a gallery that shows off your work and shows off like covers you've done and things like that, and a store where people can buy like your original art and everything. I feel like I wouldn't say that every single artist has to have a website of the same way, but I do have to say that I think that type of thing is growing increasingly necessary for like it's an important thing to have. It's good to have an imprint on the web on the internet that isn't just 140 characters at a time.
Yeah. I mean, I would like, I think it's fine that like I think a lot of people probably know me as just a snarky guy who makes fun of Zack Snyder.
Who doesn't though? Who doesn't?
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. I mean, that's fine and everything, but at some point I would kind of like, the focus of what people know me from to be my body of work. So, just kind of focusing less on the, snarkily commenting about the new Fantastic Four movie, and just focusing on, creating some cool work and, just experimenting and seeing what I come up with.
Yeah. Rob, I'm going to totally admit I'm going to see the Fantastic Four movie.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna, but you can see it. You can see it for both of us.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. No, I am the ultimate sucker of comic book movies. I can write my pretentious 5,000 word articles all day long, but in the long run, I'll still be there weekend one of Dawn of Justice. I don't know why. I have a problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're talking to a guy who literally just watched Avengers 2 on an airplane last weekend going to Boston. I mean, I hadn't even seen it before then. So, I'm not the biggest authority on knowing anything about comic book movies these days.
This is just one thing I'd love to see on your blog, and obviously you're not looking for like curated content by me or something like that. But I think that one of the things that I've always been really impressed by just talking to you and working with you on articles and stuff is it seems like you have, your process and how you work really figured out pretty damn well. What's your day-to-day process like, and how you work on Chew, and how have you figured out efficiencies on putting that book together over I guess, God, is it 7 years, 6 years?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah, well, I started it in August of 2008, and the first issue didn't actually come out until June of 2009. So yeah, it's actually been right about 7 years.
So I guess what's your day-to-day process, and what's your approach for putting an issue together, I guess?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty flexible, so I mean, it does shift from time to time. But ultimately, I kind of, I've, after years of killing myself, I mean, the first 10 to 20 issues of Chew were just absolute murder. Because I literally went from, I was able to do an issue in about 2 months, and when issue 1 came out, I was working on issue 3 and 4. So at some point, I realized, wait a minute, I need to make this monthly, so I had to double my efficiency. So at some point, I really started kind of breaking down how many days do I need to pencil, how many days do I need to ink, within the framework of a month. And a big help to my process, because I was just burning myself out dramatically. My wife, again, who is very, very, just organizationally savvy. And she kind of, she saw the state that I was in, and she said, well, write out your schedule and I'll tell you if it's realistic or not. And I wrote out my schedule, what I was planning to do. And she, within 2 seconds of looking at it, she looked back at me. It was just no, this is not even close to being possible. You're going to kill yourself. What are you doing? And at some point I had to realize that, I had to come up with something that was maintainable, that wouldn't end in, my ultimate demise. So I kind of came up with a rotation. Okay. With Chew, it's 5 issue arcs. And now we've been to a place where, originally we were doing a 2-issue break. Originally I was pushing for 3 months. In the very, very beginning of Chew, I was pushing for 3 months.
The 3 month gap would be when a trade hits or something?
Yeah, it would be a 1 month break, trade hit, and then another 1 month break.
The Saga schedule.
Well, yeah, it wasn't.
But you guys were before them. It was the Chew schedule.
It was originally the Chew schedule. I'm just going to put that out there. But we got shot down because we weren't the big names that the Saga guys are. So they just didn't think that retailers would stick around for 3 months to wait for Chew, which is fine. But that would have been the ideal schedule. So we were doing 2 months off, and that would give me a little lead time to knock out a couple of issues by the time the issue came out. The problem with that is by the end, around issue 4 or 5 of the 5-issue arc, I would always be a week or two late, because it's just not. I don't work on a 4-week schedule. It's more nowadays it's more 4.5 weeks ish. So, it was always a problem. But now for the last 10 issues of Chew, we're doing 3-month breaks finally, because, it's a thing now. But it is actually a lot more healthy for me. But ultimately, the way my process is for every issue is, after I wrap an issue, sometimes I'll take a day off or whatever, but usually the first couple of days are just kind of thumbnailing out the entire issue. And then I'll go back and pencil the entire thing in about 7 days. And then after that, I'll take the next 10 to 11 days of inking. So it's inking about 2 pages a day. So when I get in the studio on those days, I'm just coming in and inking 2 pages. And then right when I'm done, I scan them in. I do all the formatting and everything in my templates. And I have a color assistant named Taylor Wells, who she's been with me since issue 19. So yeah, we go way back, and she's just a gigantic help to me. She does all the color flats, and what I do when I break everything down in the template is I'll basically, because I'm super anal and the first 3 issues of Shoe I colored like completely solo. Yet another reason why I almost killed myself in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I just realized like there's no way I can do this on a monthly basis.
Mm-hmm.
So I basically go in. I do all the color knockouts. Like, you know, if a line needs to be a certain color, I'll make it that color. And then I'll go in and do rough shadows for the entire thing. And then I'll send everything to Taylor, and she'll flat it out. She'll work out all the she'll basically clean up all of my shadows and that kind of thing, fix the color corrections and all that stuff, and then she shoots it back to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that goes on for 10 to 11 days. I'll ink the entire thing, and at the end of that, usually I'll color an entire issue in like 5 to 6 days.
Mm-hmm.
So about like 4 to 5 pages a day, roughly. So I mean, roughly it'll take me about 4 weeks, 2 days ish.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's if no one in my family gets sick. Like,
right. If you don't get sick.
Exactly. If something doesn't go wrong, but there's always kind of like a little bit of a couple day buffer just in case something happens.
Mm-hmm.
But I've kind of gotten to a place now where after 50 issues, I can hit my deadline pretty much on the money.
Yeah. I'm always, you were talking about like how you were killing yourself in the first 3 issues. Like, have you ever heard of Kaiju Max? It's a comic that's coming out right now.
No.
It's. I think you'd actually really like it. It's through Oni, and it's by Xander Cannon, and it's this.
Okay.
It's effectively it's like Godzilla meets Oz.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and it's both really funny and also really intense. But anyways, so Xander Cannon writes, draws, colors, inks, does everything himself, and it's it's like monthly-ish, and like I'm always wondering like how does he do this? And when I interviewed him, he basically said something along the lines of like I made a huge mistake. But it's what he's done in the past and other work. But still, I was just like blown away when I saw that. But with your art, so I own an original page, and this forgive my ignorance on the comic book, how comics are made front. But so like a lot of the lines are red. Like you work with red. What's the deal with that from a complete neophyte? I sort of understand comics, but don't entirely standpoint.
Okay. I mean, most artists tend to work in blue. Why you would work in a different color is it's for scanning purposes. So I would pencil out the entire thing in like a red or a blue, and then when I would ink right on top of that, and then I would scan it in. And if I scan it in just as black and white line art, the red or the blue line wouldn't show up. It would just be the black line that shows up.
Okay.
So it's just it's a non-reproducible color. But most guys use blue. I tried using blue initially, and I didn't it wasn't visible enough for me. It was a little hard to see.
Sure.
But the principle still works with other colors. And red, I just tried because that was the other color that was available when I was looking for it. Mm-hmm. But also, like, the non-repro blue that everyone kind of uses is a little too waxy for me, and I ink directly on top of the pencils. And I'm usually inking so fast that I would if I was inking on the blue, I would smear it, which is just a gigantic problem. I would just I ruined a couple of pages doing that. Mm-hmm. So with the red, it's not waxy. It's basically just regular graphite, but a different color. So it holds the ink really well, and it doesn't smear, and it actually I think looks kind of cool.
Yeah, it does look cool.
So that's pretty much it.
Oh, okay. So the only part that you actually do digitally is the colors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, so one question I had about your process is like as your career has went along and you've become you went from like Rob Guillory, newcomer to comics, to Rob Guillory, Eisner Award winner and Harvey Award winner. And now you're doing, covers for other books, and you're doing like you did that Thor annual story with CM Punk. So how do you work things like that into your schedule? Is that just like sleepless nights, or is that like something you factor into your process?
Well, I mean, I started doing new covers, just other covers for other books about a year ago, just because I had done like the only thing people knew me from was Chew. And I figured, like, oh, wait a minute, like, Chew's going to end one day. no one's going to know what I can do.
Don't say that, Rob. It's going to go forever. It's going to go forever.
Yeah, no, it's got about a year, then I'm going to have to start looking for another job. But no, it's. I mean, she was very diverse. It does a lot of different things. We jump around in tone constantly, and I think I've drawn just about everything in Chew. But at the same time, it felt like a really good idea to kind of, possibly expand my audience by doing other books, just cover art or shorts or whatever. So I just started putting it out there, and I'm pretty good buddies with the guys at Boom and IDW and Oni. So I was kind of, whenever I would see something pop up, like Invader Zim, I'm actually doing a cover for Invader Zim right now. That was literally just, I saw that they were doing it, Invader Zim. I freaked out because I was a huge Invader Zim fan back in the day. And I emailed them. And said, hey, I want to do a cover if you guys are open. And that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
And I got that gig. Scheduling wise, how it works is usually I just kind of make it work. I'm in a very different place now than I was when I started Chew. I mean, when I started Chew, my wife and I had been married for about a year. We didn't have any kids, so it was one of those things where I could just work. It was one of those free spirits who could just work whenever I felt like working.
Yeah.
But now, I have 2 kids, and that's, completely changed everything.
Right.
So I try as much as I can to have a fairly normal work schedule. Like I try to only work Monday through Friday. I every now and again I'll work a Saturday if I really have to, but usually it's like maybe once a month, maybe once every couple of months. And I try to work from I don't know, 7 or 8 to 5 or 6. So I still work, 40 to 50 hours a week. So yeah, it keeps me busy. But yeah, I just basically find time within that to work on whatever I have. But I try to make sure I don't have too many covers at a time. The interesting thing with the Boom covers is they're doing the 10th anniversary covers. Yeah. Now back in November, I was in this place where I had this really crazy year last year. I was pumping out all this work. And my daughter was born last year also, so that also made things even crazier. Plus, we were in the middle of building a house and just all this crazy transition. And it was in November, and it was looking like things were going to get easier because my schedule was finally kind of easing up. And I actually put out word to Boom and said, hey, I've been doing covers for you guys. I actually am going to have a little free time in December. December is looking really, really really easy. So if you guys have anything, shoot it my way. And they were like, cool. So I signed up to do the 10-year anniversary covers, which were I think 7 or 8 of them. Wow. But as soon as that happened, I get an email from Marvel asking me, hey, would you like to do this Thor thing with CM Punk? And that was literally overnight. I went from having nothing to do in December to having everything to do in December.
I feel like that's the comic artist equivalent of when you go from being single to being in a relationship with a very attractive person of the opposite sex or same sex, and all of a sudden everyone comes out of the woodwork and is like, oh, you're dating somebody, and all of a sudden you're really attractive to me. I feel like that's the comic artist equivalent of that.
Pretty much. I mean, literally overnight, my schedule just got really, really full. And I went from being, breathing easily and saying, oh, nice, December's going to be really laid back. I'll take some time off for Christmas, to being oh, wait, I'm not going to have, I'm barely going to have any time off in December. Which at the end of the day, having too much work is a pretty good problem to have. But yeah, I mean, I just kind of, I made it work somehow. And the fortunate thing with us is, the way Chew falls, it just kind of falls sometimes in a really favorable way for me. I mean, when I did the CM Punk story with Thor, it just so happened to be during a break. We were taking a break for Chew, and also the issue got accidentally solicited a month late. So I just so happened to have a little free time. So that ended up working out perfectly. And actually, that's going on right now. My website just got launched last week, but the 2 weeks before that were just completely consumed with uploading things and coming up with content for the website.
Yeah.
So very little Chew work got done during that time.
Yeah.
But it also happened to be during, the first month of our 3-month break. So I kind of, the time kind of made itself available, really.
Right. As it was like as fortuitous of a time as it possibly could happen in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just kind of feel it out, and I try not to. I've gotten pretty good at turning down things now. Because in the beginning, I mean, it's like I went from having no work to having just an overabundance of opportunities, and I kind of just I binged, and I didn't want to tell anybody no. And at some point, I just realized, like, well, sometimes I can't take every gig, and sometimes I just have to say no. And it's actually pretty liberating when I get to pick and choose what I want to work on. I mean, that's kind of it's a luxury that not many people have.
Well, yeah, and actually, I talked to Declan Shalvey about this on another one of my podcasts, and we had talked about, like, kind of like the value of being able to say no. And it's like, once again, it's a luxury that not everyone has, but it is helpful because I'm like, it's not like Boom. If you said no to Boom, it's not like that's the last time they ever said would come to you or something like that. But there is power in being able to say, like, no to a rate or no to a specific job, because that means, like, typically it's again, to bring up, like, relationships and stuff. Typically when somebody says no, they're like, oh my God, this person is even more desirable. So
Yep.
so I feel like that's advantageous for you.
Yeah, no, it's and again, that's something I've had to learn, because generally, I mean, I'm not like an egotistical guy or whatever, and I tend to view myself pretty humbly. So, like, I at some point, it's pretty rare when I kind of pull my artist card.
Yeah.
But it's like, there are times where, like, I've had to pull it and just say, like, well, no, I don't want to work for that rate, or my rate is this, or no, I don't want to do that on that project.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty well respected up to this point, and it's just it's a really I'm a really lucky guy to be able to kind of be in a position where I can do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the next thing I want to talk about, you've already briefly mentioned this, but you're getting pretty near the end of Chew, and I have to imagine, like, well, are you in kind of like a weird existential crisis right now, where you're actively working but also thinking, what am I going to do with the rest of my life?
Well, I'm in a weird place, because like I said, I mean, I never really, before Chew, I mean, I literally remember doing an interview before. I mean, I don't even remember. I think I was doing a little thing for Tokyo Pop, and someone had just interviewed me asking me if I'd ever do an ongoing series. Mm-hmm. And I said vehemently, I said no, I would never do an ongoing series. It's like, there's no way. And my reasoning was, I don't have the attention span for it, and mm-hmm. the work schedule would be too demanding, and for me to stay interested in something like that, it would have to be different every month, basically.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, here we are now, and like, I have like 50 issues under my belt, moving into the home stretch, and I never really expected any of this to happen, and it's really, really bizarre. And now we've gotten to a place where, like, we really are closing up shop. I mean, 50 was a really major issue. We killed some characters, and they're like really not coming back. And now we moved into a place where, like, every issue is kind of a milestone. It's kind of like, this is the last time I'll ever draw this character in a comic. It's really, really, it's weird. It's kind of like, we've been drawing these guys. I've been drawing these guys for like 7 years,
mm-hmm.
and it's going to be really bizarre moving into something else. At the same time, like, I do feel like it is time. I mean, we've been planning for this, for a really long time, and everything's kind of coming to fruition. And I mean, everything that we did in, the last 40 issues, we've been talking about since 2009. So I don't know. I have a little bit of angst about it, because, I've been in a really nice place for the last few years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's some nice job security, but at the same time, I've kind of built enough of a reputation, and also I've kind of accumulated enough of a positive rapport with a bunch of different publishers that opportunities are there for me. And I've been actually, for the past year or so, kind of talking to other publishers and saying, hey, I got a year left to chew. Like, I'm coming to you soon with something.
Mm-hmm.
So there are opportunities there. At the same time, I wouldn't be human if I didn't have a little bit of angst about it. But I am at the same time pretty excited about trying some new things and creating a completely new cast of characters.
And no ongoing series.
Yeah. I don't know yet. I mean, I think I'll say that I'll never do 60 issues again. I'll
Right.
never do 60 issues of one book ever again, because that is a freaking that is like an intense endeavor.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that was you were saying about how like you're drawing these characters for the last time, and like I was a big fan of TV show Parks and Recreation, and they had like this like making of special or something. I think it was on Hulu, where they kind of like walk through the filming of the very last episode, and it was the cast members would do their last scene, and everyone would like all of the cast and crew would come there, and like when they were done, they would clap and say goodbye and stuff like that. And I thought that was a really like I didn't realize things like that happened, but it's natural that something like that would happen, especially if you've worked on something for like 7 years, like they did. And you've been doing the same thing, and I have like drawing like Tony for the last time, or drawing Amelia, or whomever. Like it's such a I don't know. I mean, like as a person who's read the book since issue 1. I've developed a emotional connection to a lot of these characters, but you're the artist. You're the person who made like literally brought them into being. So I have to imagine that the goodbye process has got to be a very, I don't know. I'm not saying you're like blubbering at your desk as you're drawing them, but it's got to be an interesting emotional time for you in that regard.
Yeah, it's really strange. I mean, it's this is the book that essentially launched my career.
Mm-hmm.
So, and yeah, these are the characters that I basically made my name off of.
Yeah.
So like now it's hanging that up and moving on to something completely different, and kind of not drawing Tony Chu anymore is going to be really strange. But again, I mean, it's the way we're moving into it. It feels really natural, and it feels really like. I mean, we really have been planning for this for a really long time, and now we're actually walking in it, and it's really bizarre. I mean, we were talking about. I mean, we didn't start hitting these kind of milestones until issue 30 when we killed. Can we talk spoilers?
Yeah. Like, spoiler alert! If you've never watched Chew or read Chew, beware spoilers from here on.
Yeah. Well, we killed Tony with an I, Antonell Chu.
Yeah.
In issue 30. 30 was the halfway point. We had been talking about killing her since 2009. Since the very, very first trade. She wasn't even introduced in the book yet.
Right.
And we had been talking about that. And whenever that finally came around and we did it, that was the first, holy crap moment of the entire thing. That's when we really realized, like, wait, this is like we're moving into a completely different phase, and this isn't gonna last forever.
Right. It's when shit got real.
Yeah, that's absolutely when it got real.
Yeah.
And we're kind of hitting that every issue now.
Yeah.
Moving into the last 10 issues. 50 was the first. Well, I mean, actually, 45 was probably the first with the whole Pollo thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then 50, with everything that happened there. I mean, that's literally the last time I'm going to draw that character ever again.
Yeah.
And and I mean, 51's the same thing. I mean, there's a character that I'm drawing. I'm actually inking that page today, and that's the last page of the book I'm going to be inking with this character ever again. And it's really, really strange. But at the same time, it's just a kind of a fulfillment of what we've been planning. So it's kind of satisfying at the same time, but a little sad.
So as far as books that I read, like I read a fair amount of comics, and a lot of them I read and I enjoy and I put down, and I go on my day and everything like that. But I feel like Chew probably elicits some of the more like passionate responses from me, where I'm just like, fuck those guys, what are they doing? Putting Pollo in a trash can? What the hell?
Right.
But I'm always curious. Like, you guys have done some serious, like some shocking things throughout the entire series. But has there ever been a time where you got the script from John and you were like, no?
Oh man, I'm trying to think if that's ever really happened. I mean, there's he usually gives me a heads up way before. I mean, way before I ever get the script. I mean, we usually, I always wonder if I annoy him because I kind of stand in the fanboy role.
Right.
Like I am a fan of the book. I mean, I was actually a fan of John's work before we ever started working together. Mm-hmm. So I'm always asking, hey, what's going to happen? Like, you know, moving into this next arc, like what's going to happen this issue? And he, you know, sometimes he has an answer and sometimes he doesn't. And usually, you know, every now and again, I'll get an issue in that I've never, he hasn't told me anything about, and I'm caught completely off guard. And there's only been a couple of times where, I mean, I wouldn't say there's been anything that I flat out told him, like, I'm not going to draw that. But at the same time,
that would be so awkward, I just have to say. It's like, great, I have to replot this.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some things that we've disagreed on.
Right.
Just because we're two completely different people. Sure. But at the same time, like, you know, we both have a lot of respect for each other, and we kind of are able to work on compromises. And, you know, the respect definitely helps, because, I mean, if we didn't respect each other and we were just, like, working together to get a check, it'd be really, really hard to work out any kind of compromise or really to get anything done. Right. But no, I don't think there's ever really been anything that I've just flat out, like, vehemently opposed. There's been things we've disagreed on, but things that we've worked through, you know, over the course of the issues.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think what you're saying too, like, if you guys, like, the comic wouldn't be as good as it is if it weren't for the fact you guys were working close together in such a way. Yeah. But and I meant less like a adversarial, no more as in like, I can't believe you're doing this. What the hell? Oh yeah. Well, let me think. Like, that's like literally every issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. Man, I don't know. I mean, usually the big character moments. Yeah. I kind of know well ahead of time. And one of the bigger shocks to me was issue 44 when you know, a whole lot of the good guys go against the vampire. Oh yeah, and, you know, the very first you know, big splash of the issue is Caesar, you know, with his arm cut off. Right. it's like I didn't know that was coming. Like I actually didn't know. And then Appleby ends up getting, you know, bisected. Basically, he gets his torso cut off, and you know, there's all this stuff going on. And I'm like, holy crap! Like, what is this? Right. So that would probably be one of those, you know, what the hell moments that he's kind of thrown at me from time to time.
Yeah, I remember reading that, and I was just like, wait, Appleby is in the 60th issue. How is he going to be in the 60th issue if he's missing his lower half? Then I found out he was going to become a centaur. Amongst other things, I guess. Yeah. Oh no, he's got a few more iterations before the series is over. Well, so you know, for something like that, like I'm always curious about like how like free flowing like the collaborative process is for like something like the different iterations of Appleby's lower half. Like, is that something where John's like specifically scripting, like draw him as a centaur, or is that more like you know, it's an animal, have fun with it, or something like that? Like,
it's a little of both, but in particular with him, he's weird, man. Like he'll just randomly have certain things really, really vividly decided on. Like there'll be some things that he'll be like, you know, just, you know, do whatever you want, you know, whatever feels right. I don't really have a decision on it one way or another. But then there's certain things like Appleby's cyborg body that he absolutely knows in detail what he's going to be. Like he knows he's going to be a centaur one issue. He knows he's going to be, I forget, maybe there's a mermaid at some point. I don't even remember. I mean, there's just so many. Like he knows everything and when they're going to be that or whatever. Like he's just weird that way.
I do think it's funny that one of the things that he had a very clear vision on was all of having Beefcake Kirkman posters up.
Yeah, I was, see, I thought it was funny initially, but then we kept doing it, and I kept getting a little nervous. I was like, because, I mean, we love Kirkman. He's a great guy. I mean, he was basically the godfather of the book. But at the same time, like, you know, we don't know him that well.
He's like, why do I keep showing up in this book?
Right. Like we didn't know how he would respond, how he responded to it. So there were a couple of times where we got a little nervous and we were going to scale it back, but then we actually talked to him and he was like, "Oh no, it was great. Well, I'm actually a big fan of it." So we kept doing it. We're actually doing it one more time before the series is over.
Good. Well, then I can have my CGC copy of the last appearance of Beefcake Kirkman.
Yeah.
That'll be a very nice collector's item. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah. Well, so as you're giving your goodbyes, and I definitely don't want you to spoil anything or anything like that. But like, you've spent you're working on 51 right now. You said, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
So you're working on 51. You've spent almost 51 complete issues with these characters. Has there anybody that you've kind of found yourself more attached to as like a both like a creator and, like you said, like the fanboy side of the project?
There's a couple of characters that I really kind of surprisingly like that I really didn't ever think I didn't think I would like them. I didn't really make them thinking I would like them. D-Bear.
Okay.
D-Bear is the guy I'm really thinking about the most.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, initially when we designed D-Bear, Layman didn't even have like much of an idea of what he looked like.
Mm-hmm.
He was just like some drug guy who runs a chicken speakeasy in one panel of issue 1.
Uh-huh.
And for some reason, like I kind of, I just for my own entertainment, I decided to make him look like Kanye West, like a midget version of Kanye West. And he kind of began like a your stereotypical drug guy. And over the course of 50 issues, he's FDA now, and like when you see him in 51, he's actually working for the White House.
Wow.
he's this major character. So he's probably the guy that I've really been surprised how much I like.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely had a very interesting arc, especially for somebody who was like originally intended as like a like as a like one panel guy who shows up. And I mean, did you guys have plans at that point for him to show up again, or was that just kind of a one and done thing?
I think Layman had some plans for it. Again, like when we were doing issue 1, I was only contracted out for 5 issues. We only thought we would do 5 issues because we really didn't expect it to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we hadn't really planned up to that point. But I mean, Layman had arcs like already figured out for if she did go beyond it. Like he knew Kobe was going to come back in issue 6. So I assume he did know that D-Bear was going to be coming back around that time too.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know any of that. I was just kind of designing the guy, and I really wasn't thinking about the future, like in terms of like even when you were like think about like Mason Savoy,
right?
Like I remember when I designed him, he's this gigantic like 7 foot like fat guy with tiny legs who's dressed like this nobleman. Mm-hmm. With a monocle. Like when I designed him, I didn't know that I hadn't read issue 2 yet. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know that he was going to be like, a master of kung fu.
Right.
Like that wasn't, I probably would have, added that to the design somewhat had I known that. Mm-hmm. But I was still focused on just like the per issue grind that I wasn't even thinking in those terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like that actually made him a better character because, like, the fact that he's like a kung fu master that still wears a monocle makes him like immeasurably more badass.
Absolutely. Like I kind of look back at that design and I'm thinking, like, what was I thinking when I made this guy? Like, he has a monocle. Like what was going through my head when I decided to give this guy a monocle?
Yeah, I guess it's a good thing that he doesn't get punched in the face too often because I feel like a monocle would be bad in that situation.
Yeah. Well, I've actually that's one of the questions I get asked at panels a lot is, how does it stay on his face? It's like, well, I mean, it's a comic. I have no idea.
I feel like that's like your equivalent to like getting asked if you're like writing the X-Men, like questions about like the Summers clan or something like that, like continuity.
Yeah. There's a few questions that we get like just all the time. We actually did a panel in Boston Comic-Con this weekend, mm-hmm. and we got every one of those questions. It's like where did the idea for Chew come from? Why Beats? And I forget what the third one is, but it's usually like we can always count on those questions popping up.
I feel like the only appropriate answer to why Beats is why not Beats.
Yeah. No, he had no idea either. Layman has no idea. I think he just liked the color of them.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember asking when I interviewed you guys at New York Comic Con a couple years ago, and I remember asking like, you know, like where the names come from for like Sabo Scrivener and like Sebopath and things like that. And I was expecting some sort of like, well, convoluted answer, blah 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 blah. And in reality, he was like, I combined two words to make something that I wanted to mean. I was like,
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, that's pretty much John Layman. I mean, I think had you asked a different comic writer, you probably would have gotten that really convoluted answer. But John Layman's just going to tell you like, I have no idea. I'm making it up.
You know, I have to say, so you know, you didn't imagine doing something that was so long because of the way that it would stay static and everything. Like, you know, you're doing this long form story and it's always kind of the same, and you know, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think it's interesting based off of kind of how you and John work, that even though it's a long story, it is pretty much constant. Like you guys seem like you put a lot of like random invention into the story. Like one of my favorite things that I talked to you guys about then at Comic-Con was like there was this random character that was wearing a Devo hat. And like I love that. Like that is so random. And you know, people always bring up the Easter eggs and like, you know, that's stuff you can do to keep yourself entertained. But it is fun that it's like, you know, it has that definitive point that it's building to. And Layman, I think is I don't know if he's scripted 60, but I know he's working on it. Like so you guys know where you're building to, but within there's still invention in the process, and I think that comes out in the comic, which is really cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's an incredible amount of improvisation that goes into the book, and I think that's the strength of the book. I mean, I think if he had it tight scripted out up until issue 60, with if he was the type of writer that had intense detail and wanted me to draw exactly what was on the page without any changing or any adding to it, it would be an incredibly just crushing job.
Yeah.
But I mean, our strength has been that we bounce off of each other really, really well. And the first three issues were actually written before I came on board. So he didn't really know what his artist would be able to do. So if you go back and read like the first three issues, they're not all that funny, really. They're pretty straight up procedural cop show with a little bit of silliness here and there.
And the concept's inherently weird.
Yeah, exactly. But at some point, if you read issue 4, that's the first issue that he wrote it directly for me. And he basically wrote issue 4 in response to what I had been doing in the first 3 issues. And from there, it just became a volley back and forth of, he gives me a weird script, I give him a weird art style, and then like he bounces it back with weirder scripts, and he ups the ante, and he brings in polio, or then he brings in he makes polio rip a guy's heart out,
right?
And then he raises the ante more, and he gives polio cybernetic enhancement, and it just goes up and up and up and crazier and crazier and crazier.
I do like that you guys play with expectations, because I love that part. I think it was in the issue where everybody got jacked up by the vampire, where they dropped the attack squirrel or whatever, and I was like, oh shit, things are about to go down. And then it was like, just kidding, this is just a squirrel with a cybernetic eye, and then it gets killed.
yeah, exactly. That's actually Nick Patera actually wants that page, because it's we give a minute. Yeah, we give the Manhattan Project shout out on that origin page.
Yeah.
But no, we have a lot of fun, man. I mean, I think it's just really bizarre that we've gotten away with the things we've gotten away with. Because I remember initially in the early issues, I remember issue 2, because again, issue 1 was so straight, just played straight. But issue 2 has Mason Savoy jumping through a window and kung fuing a bunch of yakuza, and I it was such a departure from the first issue.
Yeah,
and I freaked. I didn't think the audience would go for it. And it was this weird thing where, okay, the first issue was successful. There's no way the second issue, they're not going to be on board for this. He's a fat man doing kung fu. There's no way this is going to sell. And they totally went for it. And then from there, we just raised the ante. And every time we've kind of made it weirder, the audience was totally okay with it. To the point where, we can have polio, fighting a mutant corn. I mean, it's gotten completely ridiculous, but we can get away with it now.
Yeah, well, and like look at like the Poyo specials too. It's like those are just basically unleashed, unbelievable weirdness, and people are like, more Poyo specials, please.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I'm super proud of Warrior Chicken Pollo. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's they're basically the Pollo specials are basically like the Michael Bay version of Chew. I mean, they're like so absurd. I mean, and the way he writes them is so uber pretentious. Like,
Yeah,
like there's a big splash page, and it's like the credits, and it's like Image Comics presents in association with John Layman and Rob Guillory, and
yeah.
like it's this big ordeal, and it's complete madness.
Yeah. Well, Rob, I think that's all I got for you. But I really appreciate you coming on and talking about everything as you know, get closer and closer to the end of Chew, which is really weird to say. But thanks again. I really appreciate it, man.
No, man, thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Off Panel from Sketch.com. You can find this week's guest, Rob Guillory, at his website at robguillory.com, on Twitter at Rob_Guillory, and in every issue of Chew from Image Comics. Follow Sketched on Twitter at SketchComic, like us on Facebook at /Sketched, and find all of our regular content online at Sketched. That's SKTCHD.com. Thanks again for listening, and tune in next week for another episode.